Hey everybody, it's Matt the Dice Trucker from the Literary Gamers coming to you with another book review. Guess I don't have this as centered as I like. There we go. Okay, it's been a while, and I'm going to come out and just apologize. I have kept forgetting to do these book reviews, so that's why we're a little late today. Secondly, today I will be uploading this review, and I'm going to be reviewing the last three books in the Sister of Darkness, the Nikki Chronicles series, all in one video. I'd like to move on from Goodkind. So next week, we'll have the Children of Dahara. The week after will be the ranking of the books. So I just would like to move on to other things I've been reading. I've been reading some pretty neat stuff ever since I finished up Goodkind's series. And it's time. You know, there's way too many books in here for me to just keep doing it week by week. So, I've already done Death's Mistress, so we're going to start with Shroud of Eternity. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking, and the answer is yes. I will actually be covering the controversy a little bit surrounding this book after I give you my thoughts on it. So, this continues on from the last one. They're looking for, and I can't remember, I already forgot the name of the city. What's the name of this city? This is terrible. I'm so sorry, everybody. But they're continuing their journey, and I'm not going to remember the city's name. Anyway, so the first book was about the witch Red had given Nathan Rahl a life book, and I'm going to have a friend in a few seconds, and he is trying to fulfill what's going on in that life book, and then it says the sorceress Nikki is out to save the world. So they're continuing to do that, and Shroud of Eternity kind of opens up with one of those kind of side adventures. Like last time, I had praised Death's Mistress for being much more episodic when it comes to the fantasy genre that Goodkind had created. He had gotten a little too political after a while, but in Death's Mistress, he was a return to form again. And we have a little bit of that at the beginning of Shroud of Eternity, and then we get to the actual Shroud of Eternity itself. The city that had been invisible for years has finally come back. And there's a giant stone army outside the city's walls. And there are a few, I don't want to call them kids, I think they're more teenagers who enjoy going out and smashing them. So, you're not going to let me do this, are you? But anyway, they find their way into the city, and there's been like a stream of murders by a character named Mirror Glass. They're, the trio, Nikki, Bannon, and Nathan, are all brought before the big council of wizards, and they found out that they were able to cast a spell to put that army into stone outside, and then they were able to kind of put a shroud of invisibility over the city. And things, you know, they're trying to get Nathan's power back too, so they're hoping that something within that city will help him regain all of that. So the first maybe eighth of the book was fun because it was that standard fantasy adventure, and then the rest of the book remains in the city. And I've never been a huge fan of books that remain in one location, especially in this genre. It's supposed to fill me with a sense of wonder and joy and seeing the world building. And while there was some history in Shroud of Eternity, there wasn't a heck of a lot of world building. And so I think that's kind of why I felt a little underwhelmed by it. I had read this one recently because I had been waiting forever for the hardcover to go on sale at my local bookstore. When it did, I picked it up and I was kind of like, okay, fine, it's all right. I do still want to see how this all ends. So there's some really weird magical world building with Nathan trying to get his power back. Bannon is trying to kind of fit in with these friends he's found. It doesn't really work out. And eventually, by the end, and I'm going to have to spoil it here, so spoilers. By the end of the book, the Stone Army outside is starting to come apart, and that's because the magic of the city is coming apart. And I think they believe they have to put the shroud back up, and that involves a lot of sacrifice. And so there's a lot of intrigue going on within the city. One of the wizards who actually ends up being Mirror Glass flees, and they send someone called a Morazeth, and more about that in a second, after him. So that's pretty much Shroud of Eternity. It ends on a cliffhanger because when the army wakes up, they're pretty much ready to attack the city. So I want to talk about the Morazeth. Correct me if I'm wrong, Internet, and I know you love doing that. I believe the Mord Sith were first created by the Rahl line. And I was not under the assumption that it had found its way into the old world, which is where we are. I thought that it was completely a Rahl thing that was created. And of course, it's exactly the same description type of person, where you have, the leather and the training and, the Agil type of thing. These are things that had the Mord Sith. Now, if he wanted to create more Mord Sith, fine. Try to name him something a bit more different and show that there are connections between the two. But it was just way too close for me to really kind of believe what was happening here. The book was fine, and I hate to say that, because by the time we reach fantasy, it shouldn't be just fine. The city is Ildakar, thank you, or Ildakar, however you want to pronounce it. That's the wonderful thing about fantasy, is you can pronounce things however you want. Even if the author pronounces it differently, and you find out for years you've been saying it wrong, you'll still say it the way you initially heard it. Now, I'm going to pull out my phone because it has notes about the controversy of the book. I'd give the book about 2.5 stars. It's fine. You do need to read it to get to the end, because the next book is actually decent. Let's see. Here are my notes. Okay, so when the book came out, if you followed Mr. Goodkind's Facebook page, he kind of held up this cover and called it laughably bad. At first, I didn't see what was so bad about it. Of course, the city is in the background. His name is covering the city. I thought maybe that was it, because no one can see what it looks like. Maybe it's because the three characters kind of standing in the same formation as the last book. That's not really that, because, there's just artistic renderings of Nathan, Bannon, and Nikki as the Stone Soldiers. I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out why he was calling this cover laughably bad. And I felt bad for the artist, because it's like, didn't you get a chance to approve this artwork before it was put onto the book? So, and this is really where the controversy comes in. You can have your opinion on cover art however you wish, even if you're the author. But he invited the fans to mock it, and was offering free copies to anyone. Basically, that if you mocked it, you'd be randomly selected to kind of go in it. And if this is a little bit off, let me know, because I'm trying to remember, because this was back in 2018. 2018, let's find out. I should have had that ready. 2017. This is back in 2017, so 5 years ago. And the artist comes forward and called his behavior was just out of line. Goodkind's behavior was out of line, and claimed that he did what he was told to do. So when we finally find out why Goodkind hated the cover, and I'm going to zoom in on, well, not zoom in, but I'll hold it up close. He said he didn't like the depiction of Nikki on the front and called it over-sexualized. And, I've seen much worse in fantasy. Much, much worse. There was a recent issue in the board gaming community about artwork like that in fantasy games. And when people asked him to be more specific, because still we were like, huh? He said, well, just look at her boots. And she is wearing heeled boots. Is that it? Was that the reason you basically lashed out at this artist? I don't get it. So if any of you have more information regarding that incident, I remember seeing it. I didn't follow Mr. Goodkind's Facebook page at the time. My wife did, and she saw it and she was like, this is bad. This is really bad. I don't know how things are going to progress going forward. So, to be honest, I don't know what to think. I mean, it is what it is. Shroud of Eternity, the book, at least for me, gets 2.5 stars. I feel like it didn't go anywhere. It was too plotting in the same location. And while there was some interesting world building stuff, I didn't see the value in remaining in that location for too long. So, the third book in the series, Siege of Stone. This one I did not pick up in hardcover. I think I waited too long and it was gone by that time. This is basically the book about the battle. And in mass market, it's 665 pages long. So, there's a lot of stuff in here to really like. You get to see Nikki as a tactician and a strategist, and how she's handling the siege of the city, how she's getting the people behind her, how they're getting the right ones to fight and the wrong ones to fight. There's a lot of issues surrounding and I think I called them teenagers, but they're just kind of young men who, in the last book, were going out and they were smashing the soldiers. They're actually requested to be brought forward to the commander there, and General Utros, and he wants to do the same to them that they had done to many of his men, because many of his men, when they woke up, either they were completely dead, or they were like missing parts of their body because the part in stone was smashed. And I like that. Reminded me a lot of the old Disney TV series Gargoyles, but because there's that scene in the very first episode where a bunch of them get smashed. Anyway, so Utros, he doesn't seem like a bad guy. He seems like a general out on a mission for revenge, and eventually he's like, the city belongs to us. We've been waiting, I think it's 1,000 years to take it, so now let's take it. What's amazing to me, however, and this is a slight knock on the book, and I talked about this with my wife, is the lack of advancements in warfare that 1,000 years has had. Now, the book's excuse behind this was they were behind a shroud and they couldn't get out of the city. Well, they're getting out a little by little. They would lower the shroud so they could bring in supplies, and they had slavers that come in and they bring, and there's the whole slavery aspect to the book as well. And did you know what? The camera's over there. I always do this. The camera's over there. Anyway, so the shroud is down, and it was amazing to me that there was a complete lack of evolution of military tactics, of military weaponry, of even just thought. Like, even the magic wasn't more advanced than the last time they fought this army. Now, many of them in there were there the last time this army awoke, because I think the shroud gave them like a pause on their life. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And I would just think that they'd work more towards that. They were always thinking about advancements academically through magic. I mean, perhaps they thought they were always safe and they never thought they'd have to fight again. But, I mean, they had the gladiatorial pits where the Morazeth were training both the animals and the people. So, I mean, you thought you'd have that. I mean, if you're working on kind of combat systems like that, you should probably look towards advancing it. But this army doesn't even seem like ancient. I was trying to think, well, maybe it's more like a mix between Roman/barbarian civilizations back in the day. We didn't even get that. It's just, hey, these people are the same as they were then, and they fight the same, and we're losing against them. And it builds tension properly, but my problem was that I thought that there should have been more advancements. It's really what I think. Now, Nikki does kind of try to push that envelope, and but anyway, if there's really anything I can say, and this review is going to be much shorter because it's a long battle. there's just very little to say here. They're fighting the city. I did notice that there's no characters on the front of this cover, which says to me, well, they probably just started getting an artist that was, I wouldn't say doing generic stuff. You read the book and then you create the cover art, but it has no characters, so nothing can get picked on. And then I gave my thoughts on the last book here in the series and why it was the last book. But Siege of Stone presents a good, tense battle. There's a lot of things you would expect from a battle like this on a people who are just so blind to the world around them. So I give this one 3.5 stars. It really is missing just that last bit. And once again, same location. We're in the same location through the whole book. Missing just that last little bit to make it great. And then I would have really enjoyed it. And that brings us to the completing book here, which is Heart of Black Ice. Oh, I'm sorry. Shroud of Eternity was published in 2018, but it was early January 2018. So that's probably why it says 2017 in the front, because the copyright was most likely submitted the previous year. Heart of Black Ice, the final book in the Nikki Sister of Darkness series, continues the battle. Now, the battle's not over by the end of Siege of Stone. What happens is then you get the slavers who are joining in on the battle, and these are their ships. Okay, so this actually, it's not just the city. It has something to do with the narrative of the book, and these are their ships. The battle doesn't last much longer in this one because the storylines separate. Oh, thank goodness. The storylines separate because I was getting tired of Ildikar, and I was like, let's move forward. So the three of them all get separated, and they're trying to stop Utros and his army from getting into the New World, and they're pushing quickly. I don't know how close they are to the New World because a map isn't provided. This is a continuing sticking point with me. I think that there should be maps in every fantasy book, even if your fantasy book takes place in New York or Chicago. So then you have Utros and the slavers. I can't remember if they were directly working together. They may have had some discussions, but there was never really an alliance. And this is the first time where we have contact with Richard. Oh, I mean, what do I have to say? It was nice not being around him for a while. I like Richard. He got on my nerves by the end of Warheart, mainly because he's the answer to everything. But she basically says to him, I need help. What can you do? Can you send some aid? And he sends her, it's a box, and he says, this is everything you'll need to defeat that army. So she spends the entirety of the book trying to figure out how to make what's in the box work. And she constantly thinks about him, because that's what we do. Somebody commented a few weeks ago, yes, the endless pining for Richard is back. It was gone for a little bit in Siege of Stone and Shroud of Eternity, but it's back. You shouldn't have doubted it. So yes, we have that, but the Bannon story is interesting. He is caught on one of the slave ships, and the Morazeth, who is, I want to say it's in love with him, goes after him, and they have their own little adventure with the slavers, and I can call them pirate slavers too. And then there's the other Morazeth I forgot to mention that was chasing the other wizard who made it out of the city. His name is Wizard Commander Maxim. He was able to flee before the battle started in the last book, and they sent a Morazeth after him to bring him back and kind of face what's going on. So we have that story, and then we have the Nathan story. And I mean, it's all good, but is it a conclusion? That's the question. Because I don't think this was the initial planned ending. I think after the bad press from Shroud of Eternity, there was, I wouldn't say an agreement, but not much left for him through a contract. I could be wrong. There's nothing online about it. I am completely making speculation. Perhaps this was the ending to the whole thing. And he was also writing Children of Dahara through another publishing house at the time. Or he was really starting to feel the illness. They never really released what he passed from what I understand. I'll check that now while I'm talking. So it's hard to say what his intention was. They have nothing here that says what he passed from. So perhaps he was sick for a while and he just needed to finish the series. Perhaps Tor was like, we can't support this behavior from Shroud of Eternity, so we've got to find a way to end the series. Which could also be a reason why he went to another publishing house for Children of Dahara. We just don't know. I don't know the whole story. But it didn't feel like an ending. It had its big epic battle, and she figures out how to use the thing, and she's able to kind of save the day before they get there. I think we see a few other characters from the series, and I can't remember her name. She was the sister of Light who brought Richard to Wizard School. I always call it Wizard School, so I never remember the name of it. Palace of the Prophets. So, in the end, it was fine. I didn't care for it. So, what really happened is, I would give it 2 stars. It doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a rush. It feels like there was so much more he wanted to write about it, and so much more to get to the ending there. And it all just got shoved into this one book. And it really left a bad taste in my mouth for the series, because I actually really liked Death's Mistress. It was a more return-to-form fantasy. And Shroud of Eternity was fine. I didn't really get a lot out of it. And Siege of Stone was good. I liked the action in that. And then Heart of Black Ice was just so rushed to the point where and you can tell by these reviews that I wasn't as invested in that last one as I should have been, or any of these books. I really wanted to think that after Death's Mistress that there was going to be a change in the way things were getting written. Next week we're going to look at Children of Dahara, and you'll find how quickly, my opinion still continues to go down. There is such a thing as ending a series. And it's okay to leave well enough alone, and to say that that Goodkind wanted to keep building his world, and it's great. After the series of books I wrote were finished, the next outline I have is 500 years in the future, whole new set of characters, people you don't know, and that you don't always have to have everything connected at all times. You can make reference to certain events and things, but you don't always have to have the same characters. And when at the end of it, yes, Nikki saves the day, but she saves the day with the help of Richard. So once again, Richard fixes everything, and it just gets exhausting after a while. So how would I rate the Sister of Darkness, the Nikki Chronicles series? It's fine. I really was pumped about it because Death's Mistress was one of my more favorite novels in the whole Sword of Truth series. But Confessor was such a great ending to Sword of Truth, you should have just left it alone. I hate to say it. You hate to think of that way with it, but that's the case. And, he just kept writing, which is great, but it may have needed some tightening, It's not bad to finish a book and then go back and have other people read it and say what works and what doesn't. Perhaps he did do that, but he may not have been getting either honest feedback or just wasn't taking feedback. There is that possibility. So next week will be Children of Dahara. I'm looking at the stack of books over there. And then the week after that, I'll rank all of the books in the series. Now, understand, there are 5 books in the Children of Dahara series. 4 of them are novellas, 1 of them is a novel. I will be reviewing all of that as one, because now when you buy it, you can actually buy it as a singular volume. I'm not sure if it's Tor that publishes the singular volume, but I do know that you can buy it as one now. Basically, the first novella I read in 2 hours. It was that quick. Anyway, we'll see you next time, everybody. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. We're still trying to get to 1,000. And we have some really neat stuff coming up in the next few weeks, board game-wise. Hoping on Wednesday I'm going to film a first thoughts on a very large game that's going to be landing at Essen. And we're going to be covering... Maybe Jen and I will do a playthrough of Smirk and Dagger's new game, The Spill, which is quite good. So go ahead and subscribe so you can be made aware of when that stuff pops up. And then make sure you like the video. Tell me what you liked about it. Do all the things. You like it. You hit the bell for all the icons. I don't know. Just do all the things the other more professional videos tell you to do. And if you do that, maybe we can get a bit more professional with these videos ourselves. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. That is the end of the Sister of Darkness, the Nikki Chronicles series. Yeah, maybe just stop at Death's Mistress if you get there. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.